And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kathleen Taylor with the Nevada Women's Business Center. I am so pleased to have a really good friend of mine and someone who I really admire in business, Miss Myisha Williams. So welcome. Thank you
You
so
so
much for
much.
being here.
I'm so excited.
Oh, good,
Yeah,
good.
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, Myisha, she's a very, very successful entrepreneur, and she's had a tremendous amount of success in government contracting. So, we thought it would be a great idea for her to come here today and just share some best practices, so to speak, in government contracting, in case any of you out there are interested in having the federal government entities as some of your clients. So I'd like to share some information about you to the audience.
Sure.
So Myisha Williams is the founding member and owner of My's Project and Brand Management. It's a woman minority Henderson-based small business, so locally. Prior to establishing the firm, she spent over a decade leading programs and teams across various technical industries, including management of multi-million-dollar National Science Foundation and Institute of Education Sciences grants, as well as program oversight of federally funded projects for the Nevada Departments of Transportation and Public Safety. It's really impressive. And her current focus is building and enhancing strategic professional partnerships that jointly benefit business and community through advocacy. So this is wonderful. So let's just kind of launch into the fun stuff. Would you like to share with the audience some background about your business?
Sure. Yeah. So MYS was founded in 2014, and I was lucky enough to have a couple opportunities right off the bat. So I was here to talk about how I got started.
Excellent.
They did happen to be public contracts. I was really fortunate because that gave us
Wow.
a really good launch to build the business into where we are today.
Yeah, definitely.
So MYS offers project and brand management services, and we look at them as almost two verticals. Project management services really do focus on technical aspects. We work with a lot of partners, a lot of JVs, to make sure that things run smoothly.
And what's a JV? Just
a
for...
JV, thank you, is
Uh-huh.
a joint venture.
Okay.
So working with other companies to get larger scopes of work completed. So our job within that as project management team is to make sure that the scope, the schedule, the budget all get executed as expected and hopefully exceeds expectations. So we help to manage that process and make sure that everybody's in the loop, that communication's flowing all ways, that nobody's ever caught off guard. So that piece of it is really just an organizational piece that helps quite a bit.
Oh, I can imagine. And you have such a, so to speak, a niche type of service that it really does help to streamline the whole process of a project. That in some instances, maybe a business owner or maybe a company is so focused on this piece of it that they need to bring in someone to do the piece of the project management and organization of it.
That's right. A lot of times people are curious, what does a project manager do until they have one, and then they can't live without one. Because like you said, to have a well-run, very smooth process, especially when you have large teams, when there's a lot of pieces, when there's a lot of details, and you have that person that has been trained to manage all those and set expectations. We just completed a large evaluation with two other entities, and between them there was 7 evaluators.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
for each,
extensive.
yeah, it's a big project. So
Excellent.
when you have 7 people working simultaneously and you have to come out with something that kind of looks and feels the same at the end, there's a skill to that. And
Yes,
so
definitely.
setting expectations up front as to what's expected on the back end and the length and the type of information involved and where to find that information, how to work together to share that information. Is something like a project manager can do.
Oh,
So
okay.
without that, a lot of times you end up with something you aren't expecting. So we try and improve process for our organizations.
Oh, excellent. Now, what was, and speaking of process, what was your process, so to speak, or your strategy or mentality to have government entities as part of your client base? How did that come about?
So, we're lucky, to tell you the truth. So, we have a couple of organizations that have gone out of their way to ensure that our business has succeeded.
Excellent.
And not to say we haven't put in some work in there as well, but to say that without them, those opportunities wouldn't have existed. I think that the relationships that you build and that you nurture and that you really believe in, you have to put into them, because these are like 10-year relationships I've had with a lot of folks.
Wow.
That have then come back and said, well, let's work on something together. And it gave us an opportunity we wouldn't have had on our own. That's why we say those partnerships, those relationships, the joint venture, that is how we got our initial success, really.
Yes.
So in your question asking about, how did we end up with government contracts, it was really opportunity was presented, is that other folks who already have worked in that space, have proven performance in that space, and who believe in us and who we've developed and nurtured over time, said, let's go in on this together. So it's not something I think that we could have done on our own, just starting out. Especially because a lot of public entities are looking to see that you've done this before.
Right.
Right? It's a risk.
Yes.
We're a small business, and we were a startup when we were awarded our contract.
Wow, that's
so
amazing.
Partnering with somebody who's not a startup, or partnering with somebody who has a lot of performance, and then being able to use that then as a launching pad for more government contracting is basically the strategy that we took on. So having those conversations very early on as the business was starting and saying, to the network, this is the business we're starting. These are the services we offer. Please think of us as we're going along. And having worked successfully with some of these people before, we were very fortunate. It was a competitive bid process, so nothing's guaranteed.
Yes.
But it worked in our favor, and we're really grateful.
So in reference to, in your bio, you mentioned that you were a certified minority woman-owned business.
Correct.
So how does certification give you some leverage in the bidding process, or of being considered for a government contract?
So I'm also an MBE, a Minority Business Enterprise Ambassador for the WRMSDC, but we are certified minority business. We're a certified woman-owned business. We actually have 7 certifications. So we find a lot of value in those. And that was very helpful off the bat. I can tell you that starting off with no history of performance, I think it'd be hard to leverage those certifications only on their own. I think that they are a value add to a larger package. And the reason I say that is because there are entities that have set aside specifically for people of certain groups. They have diversity initiatives or their mandates through one policy or another.
Sure.
And so what it does is it gives you an extra advantage to compete in those spaces. But the one thing that we always caution against, and I'd say all of the certifying bodies that I've worked with, councils have cautioned against this, is don't use that as your selling point.
Good point.
You have to have something to package with it.
Yes.
But once you have that and you have something else to offer, it is a huge benefit.
I agree.
So I'd say, especially if you're looking for like joint venture opportunities. So as a new business, part of my selling point to them was, we do these great things and we'll work with you and we'll offer you this added benefit of certification.
Exactly.
So a lot of these larger entities that would have difficult maybe qualifying for some of those set-asides or meeting some of those requirements now have an added value to add in the proposal. We are a large firm and we've reached over and we're bringing along with us this certified entity. And I think it shows favorably when folks are evaluating proposals.
So when someone is, for example, at your level, so to speak, the level that you were, starting up and getting established and going after government contracts, do you how beneficial is it to come in as a subcontractor with a prime contractor? How strategic is that versus trying to be the prime yourself when you're just starting out?
That is a great question. So I know others that take a completely different path, but I can tell you the way that we've looked at it.
Sure.
For me, being a prime is taking on all of the risk and responsibility. And as an emerging business, as a new business, all of the kinks haven't quite been worked out.
Sure.
For us, it was strategic for us to always come in and ask to be the sub.
Very good.
There were a couple instances where we may have been able to be the prime, but it took those experiences for us to gain that confidence. And it is something that when I talk to folks that are just starting, I'm like, go in as a sub, because what it does is it puts the liability on the larger entity to like meet the insurance requirements. Sometimes there are bonding requirements. Yes. Sometimes there's reporting requirements that you just may not be prepared for.
Right.
So my recommendation is typically when you're starting out, a subcontract opportunity is a great way to get your feet wet. Still get the background and be able to list that as a client, but not have to take on the whole thing. So I think there have been instances where people just take on too much and it can collapse a business.
Yes, it can. I find that really interesting where you're so excited to get the contract as a prime, but then you may not necessarily have the capacity in order to meet the objectives of the project or the contract. And unfortunately, in government clients, they have a very long memory. You know, when it comes to not delivering on your deliverables, unfortunately.
Absolutely. It's also a very tight-knit group. So when you're working in like the procurement field, the procurement specialists all get together. They have, and so I'd say that absolutely I agree with you 100% that you have to be ready.
Yes.
And it's not to say that you couldn't be, but you may not know what that is yet. And so when you're starting off, I think it's safer to go the subcontract route and really understand all the nuances. Because besides actually performing on a contract, there's policy nuances. There are political, things that need to be navigated. And some of those I had to learn the hard way.
Okay.
And so I'd say that happened before I started, the business. And so then kind of learning that, okay, this is a different kind of business structure, really. And so even knowing those, I was a little worried to take on something on my own, even having experienced them. And so I think we're gaining confidence now. We might do something prime soon.
Well, that's promising, really. I think that's really promising. So you mentioned the preparation of being ready. So how important it is to follow the instructions of going for a bid, of filling out an RFP or a quote for a contract, or even the formatting. How important is it to really deliver on the technical aspect of what they're asking you to do in the contract?
Sure. So just a caveat, I'm not a procurement specialist. I can only speak from my experiences having won something. But it's been my experience and one of the things that I tease one of our partners about on one of the ones that we won is we won because of my tabs. I'm like, because it is so easy to find the information. I'm like, those tabs are why we won. It had nothing to do with the content. But I think to some extent there's some truth to that, because if people can't find the information that they need to make a decision, you're already counted out. We have a consultant that we use for some of our federal contracts.
Oh, very good.
And she said that at the federal level, if there's a misspelling on the first 3 pages, they were automatically disqualified.
Wow, that's amazing.
I mean, but I think that type of detail is important, because they're saying if you are trying to put your best foot forward here and you are going to show us that this is your best work and this is what you're giving us now, this is what we can expect from you later.
Oh, good point.
And so when you're putting together these RFPs, they're no joke. It's a whole full-time job all on its own. We have a special structure where we actually take the RFP and then we build out an outline based on what it's asked. The specific language that's asked for in that section we highlight in red at the top. We don't delete it until it's time to submit the proposal. That way when we're doing our final review, we can read what we've responded versus what was asked for, and we tick them off as we go along. And then once it's been addressed, it can go away. But each section is exactly matched
Yes.
to the RFP, so that if it was numbered, even if it's numbered incorrectly, it happens. Sometimes there's multiple people working on RFP. It'll jump from section 2.1 to 2.3, and they miss 2.2. I keep it 2.1, 2.3, so that there's a direct alignment with what was given to us, and so that it matches back and forth.
Yes.
No extra information if it hasn't been asked for, because I've heard that also is not a good thing.
Wow.
But there is a definite art to following the direction
Yes.
to a T, and the things that you can be disqualified for are just so disheartening, because
Yeah,
you
it
put a
really
lot of work
is.
into
Yes.
those.
Yes.
So I definitely recommend a second set of eyes to make sure that even after it's all kind of said and done, you have one last person read what was expected and then look at what was delivered. It doesn't even have to be a content review. It's just a straight logistical,
Yes.
asked for this and it appears here. So,
I think that's critical information and best practices that you're sharing with everyone, because some people may just have the perception of, oh, okay, I can go after contracts with the city of Henderson or Clark County, and not really understand that it's a craft within itself. It's very different from writing a grant proposal, or a proposal to a corporate entity. It's this whole, it's another animal within itself. So that's really good information. Now, how can someone become aware of the different resources that you can tap into to research available contracts or bids or quotes that are open?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good question. It actually reminds me of something that I was starting to say earlier about certification.
Okay.
And that the certification on its own may not have an initial, like, this will land you a contract. But what my certifications helped our company do was put us in touch with a community of people that are willing to help.
Excellent.
So one of those that I would highly recommend to folks getting started, well, here, of course, but also the PTAC.
Oh, yes. Excellent.
PTAC is
Excellent.
a great resource. It's probably one of the first places that we started. They helped with our statement of capabilities.
Yes.
And they also got us involved in a daily bid service that's tailored to our codes, tailored to our keywords. And one of the nice things that they've done for us is that we have partners that we do joint venture with. So whenever they get work, we get work.
Oh, fantastic.
So we added their codes, we added their keywords. So now we're getting opportunities that we forward to them and say, hey, is this something you might want to go after? And if so, can we come along? And that has worked very, very well for us. So every day we get a list of bids that match our codes. There's federal in there, there's public, and there's even some corporate things from time to time.
Okay.
But it's mostly government type referral. And that's great because it taps into all these systems that you would otherwise have to search for on your own. So that's been really helpful. The other thing that we do is we go specifically to the states that we want to do business in.
Oh, very good.
The cities or the counties we want to do business in, and we register for those portals.
Smart.
So we have a special email address that just fields in incoming opportunities that match our codes.
Oh, okay.
So we have an administrative person, and we're really thankful to her,
Yes.
that goes through those daily, and then she posts the ones that she thinks most closely aligns with our business, and then as owners, me and my partner review those weekly.
Fantastic.
So then we go through them and decide which ones match, which ones are good opportunities. So I would highly recommend that folks get involved. The certifying agencies, PTAC, the Women's Business Center, to get listings and to get connected with people that could provide lists that are tailored to you all, so that you don't have to go searching for them.
Because that's a job within itself.
Yeah.
To just go on the internet and type in government contracts, and then you'll get all the stuff. But it's wonderful to go to PTAC, the Procurement Technical Assistance Center.
Yes.
All their services are free, and they are excellent.
Absolutely. And it was a big differentiator for us, because when they started coming to us, then we were getting things that we wouldn't have found on our own. So yeah, absolutely.
And saying that, kind of taking it like several steps backwards, so to speak.
Mhm.
Could you share with the audience how extensive it is to fill out the SAMS application
Sure.
with the federal government, and how patient you have to be with that process, with that
Sure.
system?
Yeah, so it's been a little while since we
Yeah.
did, and then usually when you renew, it's not as painful. But just like most of these things, I'd say I probably spent the first 6 months when I was developing the business just setting the infrastructure to get these things flowing correctly. And that's legit. Like
Yes. Yes.
it really was a full-time job, as being the only person in the company to start it out. Getting all the bid services, meeting people, kind of the networking part of it, just to lead up to being able to do government contracting.
Wow, that's impressive.
And so I would say, yeah, with SAM registration, with your certification registrations, these are full-day activities.
Yes, it
And a lot of
is.
times they're asking for things that you really have to go back in time to find. So, I mean, there's been a couple requests to, old entities that I've dealt with need these records again, and to keep those in a safe place because you'll need them again and again. But yeah, the SAM registration, I just remember it being very thorough.
Yes.
And there's a lot of things in there initially that were a bit confusing, because it's like, do you do international trade, and what are your, a lot of questions I hadn't even thought about.
Yes.
But with a lot of them not being applicable, being a smaller business, it was reasonable. It's just time consuming.
Yes.
And I know that they pull from other systems as well. So like having a cage code and having all these things, you kind of have to go into other systems, do those registrations,
Yes.
then the systems have to communicate,
Yes.
and then they'll kind of let you move on. But it's not like a half-hour process. It's usually a few days
Yes, it is.
to gather the information, to wait for all the systems to talk, and kind of get through the approval process. It does take a while.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell me, pardon me, how long have you been in business?
So 2014.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So what would you, I know this is cliche, but I like to ask people this question.
Sure.
What would you say to yourself, 3 years ago, in the here and now?
Sure.
Uh-huh.
That's a good one. And mine may be a bit personal,
Okay.
but hopefully it'll apply to others, is to think bigger.
Uh-huh.
One of the things that happened to me is, I think, as a new business owner, I was really fearful that I was going to fail. And I
That's
think
normal.
I just had that fear that, like, what if it doesn't work out? What does that say,
Uh-huh.
And I think it's a fair question, but I think it takes a lot of guts to go out there. I'm like, keep
Yes,
going,
it
keep
does.
going.
Yes, it does.
So, I mean, I probably talked myself out of doing business for myself maybe 7 or 8 times, like where I was just really on the cusp.
Uh-huh.
So the one thing that I noticed from when I first started was when I put together my business plan,
Yeah.
it was small. My goals were small. I wasn't thinking big enough. And I think that really putting out an intention to build something from the start is helpful. I really do.
That's awesome.
I
That's
encourage
awesome.
everyone to do the same. Like,
Yes.
think bigger. Like, what would that look like if you get there? Who would it affect? How would you use that? Because
Sure.
I really think it's a motivating and driving factor. And I think those times I would have talked myself out, I think I could talk myself back in without any external influence if I had really thought about what kind of impact it could have on community.
Yes.
Or what kind of things we could grow, or what kind of people could hire. And like, how would that lead? That wasn't even in my mind at that time. And I think it's important to have like a really solid understanding of like how positively we as entrepreneurs affect the economy, our
Yes.
communities, and all the good things we can do with that.
Absolutely.
Outside of just the business itself. So that'd be my words of wisdom for me.
Wonderful. And what are some things that your firm or yourself that you're doing in the community?
Sure.
Uh-huh.
So, talked a little bit about the project management side of the business. It's very technical, a lot of government work, but we also have the brand management side.
Yes.
So, on the brand management side of things, it's graphic design, it's web design, it's SEO. We have had a large state contract. We did a statewide campaign, and we partnered actually with some new marketing here locally for the state of Washington.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
That's great.
So that was really important work. Marijuana prevention for youth in the state of Washington.
Oh wow, that is significant. Given
Yeah,
that it's an emerging industry.
absolutely. So we've had some statewide success on that side of the house as well. But we utilize a lot of those services for small business here. So we offer discounted services to certified entities to get them started.
Oh, wonderful.
We've done a little bit of pro bono work for some of the certifying agencies, and we try and speak on behalf of all the initiatives that we're working on to kind of forward getting diverse initiatives implemented here, really trying to forward the mission of the councils that we're a part of, trying to level the playing field for women and minorities,
Sure.
and being very cognizant about that. So we try and use some of our brand management stuff to give back to some of those initiatives and to help businesses that fall into those categories succeed. Small business, emerging business, women-owned business, minority business. So all those things are very important to us.
Yes, absolutely.
So the more success we have with government work, the more I think that we can pour back into doing some of the other work that isn't as lucrative but is really rewarding.
Oh yeah, and high impact too, I'm sure.
Very much so. It's really exciting to see people make things and do things and grow and expand. So we're really big in that initiative. So that's where we've been trying to spend some time as of late.
I think that's wonderful.
Thank you.
And I saw you in action, so to speak, from having a conversation of Kathleen. I am collaborating with Rose Davis, Eclipse Theatre, to showcase MBEs, Minority Business Enterprises, for this 2-day event. And it went from a casual invite to, being part of the experience of how you promoted it, of making everything accessible in reference to what are the expectations of both days, arriving at the venue, seeing how you coordinated everything and how everything was just synced, so to speak. It was so wonderful, and I was so proud to see, to be a part of that process of having a casual invite to the boom, 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 boom. This is how Myisha does her magic, So really, congratulations on, and that's just like a small piece of the bigger pie, so to speak. Would you like to expound upon that venture with Eclipse and Rose Davis?
Sure. So I have to give huge kudos to Rose. I wish I could take credit for making all that happen, but Rose and her team came together and put a lot of those activities together for Industry Day, from corporate partnerships to some of the strategic communication that went on to get the MBs there. Part of my job as an MB ambassador is to assist Rose with those efforts. So thank you so much for, such kind words.
It's true.
But myself and actually Renee Boyce is the other MB ambassador here locally. Spent time sending out.
He's fantastic.
He is, yeah, absolutely. Sending out personal invites, calling MBEs and letting them know what these initiatives are about. So kind of just growing on that a little bit. Since the ambassador program started, Rose has been mentoring us and helping us along. We basically came to her and said, we want to know who else is doing business in the minority community. We know that folks are certified. We know they're here. Let's increase that spend between ourselves. And so actually Rose went to bat for us and Cecil as well. And came in, and Cecil Plummer, he's the president, came in and said, you have this opportunity to help organize MBEs here and get them together so we can meet each other.
That's fantastic.
It was really great. So our first event was actually in April at Eagle Promotions.
Oh, okay.
So Mario and Sean over at Eagle, big shout out to them, hosted the first one, and Renee was actually the co-sponsor for that event. So we went to Eclipse, and we had a very similar gathering where folks came in and they got to meet each other, and MBs got to talk about the services they offer and how we might be able to help each other. We invite corporations to the open houses so they can actually tour an MBE facility.
Excellent
So
strategy.
they have a
Yes.
major operation over there, and they're doing such good work.
Yes.
And so for folks to be able to go over to Eagle and see the promotional items, the printing, and all of the initiatives that they have going on was really spectacular. So it went so well, we did a second one at Eclipse. And a big shout out to Nick, of course, over at Eclipse Theatre. And so he opened up the doors of Eclipse to do the same thing again. So we were able to co-sponsor that. And we did, again, tour of the facility to see all the really state-of-the-art activities that were going on there. And everybody got a chance to network, and so excited that you were able to see that.
Oh, yes.
So we're going to do that quarterly. We'll have another one
wonderful.
here in September, I believe on the 20th, and we're still outlining all the details, but we'll make sure to send them along. But it's a great opportunity for folks in the community to spend money with each other.
Right.
Like, we're all small business. We're not all of us are small. Some of there's medium, large size business, but in the community and support each other.
Right.
Instead of pouring it all into Amazon. And not saying anything's wrong with Amazon, but I'm just saying there's business to be done here. A lot of us are working very hard. So, yeah, that's the initiative that we're really trying to forward, is increasing that network spend.
And I think it's such a compelling story, so to speak, and there's just more to come with you. And I know that being in business for 3 years now, I know that it's just the start. But I'm just curious, what do you think your end game is, your exit strategy, or is that a little too far in the distance?
Sure. It's a great question. It really is. That's one of those things that when I was referring to thinking bigger, like I'm still in the process.
Oh, that's a good
Still in the
that's a
process.
good answer. Still in the process. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that luckily I've been given such a great community of mentors that they've been asking similar questions. And then you start to look at things differently. So
You do.
I still call myself an emerging business for a startup. And people are like,
Really?
you've been in business 3 years, you're not anymore. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, so getting away from the mentality of like, okay, no, we're making it. What's next? So I think actually having a group of mentors to help is really key to that discussion.
Yes.
So I can't tell you what that is, but I mean, looking at, we're doing joint ventures now, but what if those become more formal? And like, what
Right.
about growing in larger capacities and faster ways? And so
Yes.
starting to think about those things, but not quite sure yet.
Okay. I think your path and having you frame that, especially with the influence of mentors, I think it's just key, and I'm sure eventually you'll have it formulated into a more, solid plan of action, so to speak. Sure. But I would say the mentorship is absolutely key.
Absolutely.
It seems that being a former entrepreneur myself, I had to get out of my own way in that I'm not the expert in everything. I don't know everything, and I really understood the value of mentorship and bringing advisors in, or or even people that are not even in business, but they have that thing about them that can basically cut to the chase and say, okay, I know you want to do this, but consider A, B, and C. So how valuable is mentorship for your own professional growth and development as a business owner?
I think if it weren't for them, I'd be in a much different place. And mentorship can come in many forms.
I agree.
So I have like a long-term mentor, like a business, mentor that I just have so much respect for, and he's helped me through thick and thin, and planning, through investing, through making decisions about hiring even.
Wow.
That I can count on him for a lot of facets because he has a lot of experience. Then I have a more recent mentor assigned to me through the WRMSCC.
Oh, very
so
good.
it was an MBE to MBE mentorship program.
Ah.
So then in that capacity, I'm like, that's a whole different level of mentorship and extremely valued. So shout out to Mario Eagle Promotion. So, but then I have like a third level of mentorship, and it's so funny. And I always tell people, don't be afraid to talk to your competitors.
I agree. There is so much value in that. It really is.
They've been doing this much longer.
Yes.
And honestly, I'm not that intimidating. I'm just,
No, you're not. Not at all.
No, but I mean, none of us are. I think we come in thinking that they're going to assume we're trying to take market share and we're going to step on them. But the thing is, when you're getting started, there's a level of pride, I think, that folks who are doing well take in being able to help somebody else up.
I agree.
And so looking at them as just straight competition and trying to position yourself against people in your industry, I wouldn't recommend for someone walking in as a new business.
Excellent.
I use those people, and I came to them and I'm like, I know I have a lot to learn from you. You've been in business 13 years doing what I do. And those ended up being some of the most lucrative mentorship opportunities I've had, because we aren't competing. I'm not doing the same things they are, and they have more experience, and the things they're going after are different. But then it also allows me to partner with them on some of those things, to gain the experience and to improve. And then you find where your services do align and you don't step on each other. And then where you can offer value add to a business that's doing something similar to what you're doing.
Right.
So then all of a sudden you've expanded your services.
Yes.
So, I mean,
Yes,
mentorship
really
for us has come in a big way of partnering with people that would be considered our enemy, right? Like our competitor.
Right.
Not at all. So I'd say that's been probably a really good lesson learned for us as we're going through this mentorship thing, is that finding mentors in your field is probably a really good thing to do.
Yes.
Because sometimes they're even too big to take on the smaller stuff that's just right-sized for you.
Yes.
So we've actually had a lot of stuff kind of funneled down through having conversations with people that do the work we do.
I think that's absolutely fantastic, to have the perspective of your competition doesn't necessarily have to be doesn't have to be adversarial. It could be like asset based, more of a asset versus a liability of working with my competitors.
Yeah.
And it really does help to build capacity in other areas for you and for them too. So it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, this has been absolutely fantastic. Would you like to share any type of a couple of pearls of wisdom that you'd like to say in closing to the audience?
Gosh. Terms of government contracting, I think we've covered at least what's worked for us. So,
And that's important.
the only other thing I can say is there's different levels of contracting. Some people, we're professional services, so the way in which we bid may look different from people that provide goods that are just going,
Point.
low cost,
Right.
or, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. So I hope that there's something in here that's beneficial for each person. But I would just reiterate is utilizing a network, not having too much pride,
Right.
asking for help when you
Yes.
need it,
Yes.
and really just fostering relationships. Because I can tell you that we have relationships with procurement professionals, but those aren't necessarily the people we've done business with. Those people have
That's a
helped to
good
provide
point.
insight to the federal stuff.
Right.
I have folks that have offered to provide assistance on a federal bid, even though they're maybe state or county,
Oh.
because they have insight
Right.
into how the
Exactly.
process works.
Exactly.
So fostering that network and building it and using it, not in just the capacity to what can I get from you, what kind of business
Thank
can I
you.
get from you,
Thank you.
but to say that you're a knowledgeable person in this area of expertise set up to help,
Right.
to utilize those resources in that manner, has worked really well for us. And I think patience, really.
Yes. Absolutely.
I've been waiting to hear on a proposal for months, and I'm just
Yes.
like, well, patience, definitely. So, yeah, that'd be it.
Well, I think this is wonderful. And if someone would like to contact MYS project management and brand, please give us your contact information.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is www.mysfirm.com. And you can reach us at info@mysfirm.com. The company's number is 800-933-9720. And happy to field questions, happy to talk more about this topic. I'm happy to provide consultation, small emerging businesses, if you need any insight on how to get started.
Okay,
Okay.
excellent.
Great.
Well, thank you so much, Myisha Williams, and this has been such a treat. And I look forward to having you as a guest on our radio show this Thursday on KKVV 1060 AM. It's also going to be live streamed on www.kkvv.com, and we'll continue this wonderful conversation.
Thank you
So
so
thank
much.
you.
I
Oh,
appreciate
absolutely.
you, Kathleen. You're the best.
Yes, this was wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm Kathleen Taylor with the Nevada Women's Business Center. If you have any questions, please give us a call at area code 702-734-3555 or look us up online at www.nevadawbc.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yay.